My name is Rosy Jones. I work for a company called FP Enterprises, for which this is my second gig, because the first one was last Thursday. My background is in working in enterprise education. I've spent the last 6 years working at the University of Southampton and variously in Hampshire, helping students start up businesses, but also helping academics start up businesses, which is an interesting experience, particularly when they're mainly scientists. I've got quite a lot of background in working through the university processes as well as getting out people's ideas. Currently I work for Business Link, and I actually help people who are running their own businesses on the Isle of Wight get them bigger, which is interesting. I mean, I think for the last year, 6 months I've been doing that, and we've created 25 jobs and turnovers of something in the region of 1.3 million higher than it was in November, so reasonably successful. But I'm going to talk about you guys now. The first thing I wanted to say really is that how many of you are actually thinking about starting up your own businesses? Most of you. This is one of the key things you have to remember, that actually once you believe that you can do it, really the rest of it is just about bookkeeping. And I generally have asked a number of things that the students that I used to work with in Southampton is how many of you actually at the end of the month get your statements and your checkbooks and check up and see how much money you've spent and how much you haven't? My God, 5. Congratulations, I bow to your superior ability to manage money, because I'm hopeless at it. The rest of you are going to need accountants, all right? Those of you, if you don't intend to actually go into any kind of business support or anything like that, then think about it as a sort of sideline that you can charge your friends here. Because if you can do that, then you're probably at least one step down the line to be able to make your own money. The other thing to say is that as arts and design graduates, multimedia graduates, people working in arts colleges, you're not alone. Something like 46% of graduates from art and design courses, after 3 years of graduating, have start their own business or are working, freelancing or for themselves. And that's against an average in every other sort of graduate area of something like 7 to 8%, and it's probably lower than that. The National Council for Graduate Entrepreneurship think it's about that level. You're not alone, and don't be worried about it. And the second thing is that people will help you. Do not be scared to ask for support. Mainly because there are 6 of us around, who've been up on the stage already today, who will undoubtedly be happy to spend 10 minutes talking through your ideas or what your problems are going to be. And also what the potential benefits of you doing what you want to do and how you might go and try and do that. But not only people who are standing up like this, as Catherine was saying earlier, you have ECHA, which is apparently in the top corner of the building in a big glass area. They're all online and they have book online appointments, so please go and get them to help. And the other thing is that mentors and people who are supporting you are very, very interested in supporting you for 2 reasons. Firstly, because actually most people are quite nice and would like to help other people, even if you think you're in competition with them. And the second thing is that even if they're not as nice as you may think they are, everyone loves to be flattered, and asking someone's opinion is always going to flatter them. So remember that, and don't be worried about asking people. Having a mentor of any sort, even if it's just your mate that you can just talk to a lot of the time, is absolutely invaluable. So please try and find someone, and there are loads and loads of people around that can help. How many of you actually come from London? And the rest of you are from where? It's Portugal, okay. Anyone from the rest of the wilds of Britain? Nottingham? Okay, okay. Well, Nottingham's quite a good place because there's 2 universities in Nottingham. They have an equivalent of the ECHA, and they will help you. So anywhere there. In fact, I think Nottingham is part of a university group that has got a support and money for university students. There's a thing called the SPEED project. Check it out, because there's universities all the way down from the East Midlands around to Southampton who've got money for university students of any from any college who they can help after graduation. So don't worry about going to your local university if you move home. That's the sort of place. So do go out and look for support. I just want to take you through a few basics that I've come across in the last 5 years about people who are trying to set up their own businesses, things that you probably need to think about as well as what you're actually going to do. I'll leave that to you because I'm not an artist. My background's in medieval music, and I can tell you how I got into that later if you're interested. But you know where you're going to go with your practice. These are the sort of things that you need to think about when you're actually, you know, doing the sort of Thursday afternoon boredom bit from the practice. So the first is, can you afford to live? There's a thing called a survival income spreadsheet where you're actually sort of working out all the things that you have to do in order to sort of get yourself to work on a Monday morning. Those are things like rent, bills, council tax, travel, food, and you know the essential bottle of wine if it's part of your essentials. Make sure that you know how much money you need to turn over on a weekly basis. It is possible that you'll have to get a part-time job, and I'll come on to that in a little bit. But make sure you know how much money you're going to need, because if at any point you go and ask for anyone for money, they're going to want to know why you're spending £300 a week on your car, and if it's because you've got an S-type Jag rather than a smart car, then it's, you know, the petrol's going to cost you too much money. So they're going to be sort of saying things about that. But do understand what your absolute baseline is going to be. The second thing is thinking about premises. Where are you actually going to practice? Your parents' garage is undoubtedly going to be cheaper than any place that you can find in the middle of London, unless your parents' garage is in the middle of London. And there's a real playoff again about being in a community of artists in the centre of an atelier or an incubation unit, which might give you contacts, benefits from space, benefits from materials, the ability to use technology against the fact that you might have free premises. Intellectual property is key. Catherine mentioned a thing called Own It, and she gave you the website address. There's also a company called Acid who have handily an insurance system where you can insure yourself against intellectual property theft. The reason for doing that is that to actually prosecute intellectual property legal, you know, when you go through the courts, basically defending your court case, that's it. It's bloody expensive, so be aware of that. Taxes, national insurance contributions, please pay them. And also the tax guys, about 20 years ago, if you ring them up, they'd sort of shout at you down the phone. These days, they're really nice. And as I said, I'm not an accountant. I'm not very good at money. And when I ran my own business about 7 years ago, I got into such a state with that that I ended up getting fined £7,000. And the people I was speaking to on the phone were sort of sitting there agog as I cried down the phone at them. They're quite nice these days, so you can go and have a chat to them, and they also will give you lots of advice. So do use that. Okay, so how many of you actually know where you're going to starting your own business? Okay, that's good. How many of you actually had any jobs or anything like that? Has anyone paid you to do anything? Okay, that's a good place to start because you know what you want to do and what you don't want to do. Don't do what I do, which is spend the money. Stash it in a bank account for the next time. You've probably spent it already. It's one of those things. Can I just ask you what courses you're doing, generally? Interactive media? Are you all doing interactive media? Digital media.
Well, I'm actually doing an MA in design management.
Okay, all right, that's good. What was the job that you were doing? Is that
freelance graphic designer?
Fine, fantastic. Okay, so with all of your ideas, all the things that you know you're actually doing for your courses, do you have an understanding, this is a rhetorical question, of what you're actually going to sell? Do you know what your product is going to be? Next thing is, do you know that it's something that someone wants to buy? Now, don't forget, as with Sean's stuff, it may be the European Union's Arts Centre or the number of commercial funding and not commercial funding, community funding that they have. They may be your customer, but it's much more likely to be someone who's going to give you some commercial money. So do you know that what you're trying to sell is something that someone wants to buy? Do you know who that person is? And a friend of mine says always that if you don't know who that person actually is, what their name is, where they live, what their phone number is, then actually that's really the place that you need to first starting. So, for example, is it someone who is the creative director at Sky? And if so, do you know what their name is? And if not, come and ask Sam.